She warned him in his dreams, but he didn't know she wasn't trying to save him. Daniel had always been a creature of the night, even before the accident. As a graphic designer working freelance from his cluttered apartment in the heart of the city, he thrived in the quiet hours when the world slept. The glow of his computer screen was his companion, the hum of the city below a distant lullaby. But after Emily's death, the night took on a new meaning. It wasn't just a time for work or solitude anymore. It was a sanctuary, a veil that hid him from the harsh light of day where memories stung like open wounds. Emily had been everything to him. They met in college, two art majors bonded over late-night sketches and shared dreams of traveling the world. She with her infectious laugh, her wild curls that framed a face full of freckles, and that signature blue dress she wore on their first date, a thrift store find she claimed brought her luck. Their life together was a whirlwind of passion and plans, until that rainy evening 1 year ago. A drunk driver, a screech of tires, and suddenly, she was gone. Snatched away on a slick road while driving home from a gallery opening. Daniel hadn't been there. He'd been at home, waiting with dinner growing cold on the table. The grief hit him like a tidal wave. Days blurred into nights, and he stopped sleeping altogether at first, haunted by what-ifs and regrets. Therapy helped a little, friends checked in, but nothing filled the void. That's when the visits started. Not right away. No, grief needs time to fester, to twist the mind into seeing what isn't there. It began subtly, about 3 months after the funeral. The first time was on a stormy night in late autumn. Daniel was in bed, staring at the ceiling, the rain pattering against the window like impatient fingers. His alarm clock read 2:17 a.m. when the bedside lamp flickered once, a brief stutter in the steady glow. He blinked, dismissing it as a power surge from the storm. But then, a chill crept into the room, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes your breath visible. He sat up, heart pounding, and there she was, Emily, perched on the old wooden chair by the window, the one she'd always claimed as her reading spot. She looked just as he remembered, pale skin glowing faintly in the dim light, her blue dress pristine, not a wrinkle or stain from the accident. Her smile was soft, almost shy, as if she'd just woken from a nap. "I missed you," she whispered, her voice like a sigh carried on the wind. Daniel froze, his mind reeling. This couldn't be real. He rubbed his eyes, convinced it was a hallucination born from exhaustion and sorrow. "Emily," he croaked, his throat dry. But she didn't respond, just watched him with those familiar hazel eyes, unblinking. He reached out, but his hand passed through empty air. She faded as dawn approached, leaving him alone with a pounding heart and a room that suddenly felt too empty. The next morning, he laughed it off. Grief does strange things, he told himself. He'd read about it online, vivid dreams, auditory hallucinations. He even called his therapist, who prescribed more rest and some mild sedatives. But the pills didn't help. The next night, at exactly 2:17 a.m., the light flickered again. And there she was, same chair, same smile. "I missed you," she repeated. This time, Daniel tried talking to her. "How are you here? You're gone." She tilted her head slightly, her expression unchanging. No answer, just that loving gaze. He noticed details. The way her hair fell just so, the faint scent of her favorite lavender perfume lingering in the air. When she vanished at dawn, he checked the chair. There, on the armrest, was a faint smudge, a fingerprint, as if someone had gripped it lightly. Hallucinations don't leave marks, he thought. Panic set in. He scoured the apartment for explanations. Faulty wiring for the light, dust for the print. Nothing. That night, he stayed up, coffee-fueled and determined. 2:17 a.m. The flicker, the chill, Emily. "Tell me something only you would know," he demanded, voice trembling. She leaned forward slightly. "Remember our trip to the lake? You proposed under the stars, but I said no, not yet. I wanted to travel first. You cried, but I kissed it away." Daniel's blood ran cold. He'd never told anyone about that rejection. It was their secret, buried in laughter and love. This wasn't his mind playing tricks. This was real. Nights blurred into a routine. Emily appeared faithfully, always at 2:17, always whispering sweet nothings or gentle admonitions. "You shouldn't stay awake so late," she said one evening, her voice laced with concern. Daniel, emboldened by repetition, pressed her. "Why? What's wrong with that?" Her eyes darkened, just for a moment. "Because the longer you live, the harder it is for me to keep you." The words hung in the air like a thread wrapped in velvet. Daniel felt a wave of fatigue crash over him, deeper than before. He slept through the day, missing deadlines, ignoring calls from friends. His reflection in the mirror grew gaunt, shadows under his eyes like bruises. Doctors ran tests, blood work, scans. "You're perfectly healthy," they said. "Maybe stress. Get some rest." But rest was when she came. And each night, Emily seemed more vivid. Her skin less translucent, her smile brighter. One night, as she sat there, Daniel mustered the courage to approach. He extended a hand, expecting it to pass through. But this time, his fingers brushed hers, and they were warm. Flesh and blood warm. "I thought you were dead," he whispered, recoiling. She smiled sadly, a tear glistening on her cheek. "I was. But love doesn't die easily." Terror gripped him. This wasn't a loving reunion, it was something darker. That night, after she faded, Daniel dove into research. He started with psychology forums, grief-induced psychosis. But that didn't explain the fingerprints or the secrets. He ventured deeper. Occult sites, paranormal message boards, ancient texts scanned and uploaded to obscure corners of the web. Hours turned into days. He found whispers of revenants, spirits bound by unfinished business. But Emily's case didn't fit. Then, in a dusty digital archive of folklore, he stumbled upon it. Lover's Shade. Spirits who return not to haunt, but to collect. Anchored by love so strong it defies death, they siphon life from the living to sustain their presence. Not visitors, but thieves of essence. They don't come to stay, they come to replace. One soul for another, a balance in the veil between worlds. The signs matched. The exact time, the moment of her death, he realized, 2:17 a.m. was when the crash report listed her passing, the growing vitality in her form, his own waning energy. Users on the forums shared horror stories. Loved ones drained until they withered, the spirit taking their place in the living world. Daniel confronted her the next night. The room was colder than usual, the air thick with anticipation. At 2:17, the flicker. Emily appeared, but this time, her eyes held a hunger. "You're taking my life, aren't you?" he accused, voice steady despite the fear. Her smile faltered, trembling at the edges. "I don't want to, but the world where I exist needs balance. One soul must cross for another to stay." Tears streamed down her face now, real and wet, soaking into her dress. "I was so lonely without you. The darkness, it's endless. I couldn't bear it." The walls seemed to whisper then, faint echoes of voices long gone. Time stretched, each second an eternity. Daniel felt the pull, a subtle drain, like his very soul was being tugged toward her. Visions flashed, joining her in that void, eternal togetherness. It was tempting, seductive. No more pain, no more loneliness. But he thought of the life he still had, the unfinished designs on his desk, the friends he'd pushed away, the world beyond his apartment. With shaking hands, he recalled the ritual from the forums, words of release, spoken with true intent. "Emily, I love you. But I release you. Go back to where you belong." She screamed, a sound that pierced his soul, not of anger, but raw agony. Her form cracked like fractured glass, shards of light splintering into the air. "I loved you," she cried, her voice echoing as she dissolved, fading into wisps of shadow. The room warmed, the whispers ceased, dawn broke, and Daniel collapsed, exhausted but alive. The following days were a blur of recovery. He ate, slept properly for the first time in months. Color returned to his cheeks, energy to his steps. He reached out to friends, apologized for his absence. Work picked up. Life resumed its rhythm. But healing isn't linear. Sometimes, in the quiet hours, doubt crept in. Was it real? Or had his mind shattered and rebuilt itself? He threw out the chair, rearranged the room, even considered moving. Yet, every so often, at 2:17 a.m., the light would flicker, just once. No apparition, no chill. Just a reminder. And somewhere, in the thin veil between life and death, Daniel knew Emily waited. Not with malice, but with the remnants of a love that refused to fully die. He wondered if one day, when his time came naturally, she'd be there to greet him, not as a collector, but as a companion. Until then, he lived. Fully, brightly, chasing the daylight to keep the night at bay.